Okay, so now, as I told you, I want to discuss this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. This is text 7 from the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Is there anybody in this room who can say that he has no problem with the Uma? Anybody? So everybody is having problems with the Uma? Yes? Everybody wants to know how to control the Uma? Really? Okay, so listen to that lecture attentively. Now we are going to start that. Detachmanaha. The verse is on the board in Ruski, so you should have no problem. Prashantasya Paramatma Samahitaha Chitoshna Sukha Dukheshu Tatha Manapamanayo Jitatmanaha Prasantasya Paramatma Samahitaha Chitoshna Sukha Dukheshu Tatha Manapamananayoho Jitatmanaha Prashantasya Paramatma Samahitaha Chitoshna Sukha Dukheshu Tatha Manapamanayo Jitatmanaha Prashantasya Paramatma Samahitaha Chitoshna Sukha Dukheshu Tatha Manapamanayo Jitatmanaha Prasantasya Paramatma Samahitaha Chitoshna Sukha Dukheshu Tatha Manapamanayo. I remember when I was a new devotee in 1968, I was just coming back from college and Prabhupada had come to Montreal for a day. So I went to see Prabhupada and I told them how my mind was always troubling me. So Prabhupada, he shouted at me. He said, "Your mind is troubling you, my mind is troubling me, everybody's mind is troubling everyone. Just chant Hare Krishna loudly and it will come in control." So in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is called Dhyana Yoga, Krishna very thoroughly discusses the importance of mind control. The mind can play havoc with your spiritual life if it is not controlled. If the mind is not in control, then your whole spiritual life can be ruined in 1 minute. In the Vedas there is an example given. If you're sitting on a horse which is unbridled, unbridled horse means sometimes you're sitting on a horse and the horse is going very fast and you lose control over the reins of the horse. So if you're sitting on an unbridled horse and the horse is going very, very fast, then there's a good chance at any time you can be thrown off the horse. Similarly, if we are embarking on the spiritual path and we don't control the mind, then at any time you can be thrown off the path of spiritual life. Because controlling the mind is so important. Again and again Krishna is emphasizing this point. How many times in the Bhagavad Gita does Krishna talk about the mind? Right from the 2nd chapter to the 18th chapter. Virtually in every chapter in some manner or the other, Krishna brings up this issue of control of the Oma. Because this control of mind is very, very important. Now in this verse, Krishna is saying, one who has controlled the mind, for him the Paramatma is already reached. That means that one will listen to the Paramatma if his mind is controlled. But when the mind is misled by material activities, then the mind engages in a variety of sinful activities. The mind must accept some superior dictation. If your mind is controlled, then you will automatically follow the Paramatma. And if the mind is not controlled, then you won't follow the Paramatma. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that one will become peaceful if his mind is controlled. Tranquility means peacefulness. Anyway, peacefulness is very important in pursuing a spiritual life. In the Krishna book, there's a very nice story of how Rukmini was being married to Shishupala by her brother who was envious of Krishna. So when Rukmini then sent a messenger, a Brahmana, to Krishna with a request, Krishna, please come and kidnap me. I'm about to marry to somebody against my wishes. So Krishna, when he received the Brahmana, he washed his feet, and then Krishna said, "Oh Brahmana, is your mind peaceful? Because if your mind is not peaceful, you will not be able to execute religious duties. Therefore, peacefulness of mind is very important for a devotee." Why is it that we get affected by happiness and distress? Why is it that you're happy when you get what you want and you're sad when you don't get what you want? If you probe very deeply, it's just the mind that is becoming happy or sad. Nothing really happens to you. The mind is very happy when it gets a facility for sense enjoyment. And when that facility for sense enjoyment is taken away, the mind becomes sad. So the mind becomes happiness and sad, becomes happy and sad because it is used to a certain concept of happiness and a certain concept of sadness. If somebody gives you what you want, if somebody honors you, you're very happy. But if somebody insults you, then you feel very bad. Heat and cold, it's 1 minute it's hot, the other moment it's cold. So this is all due to the fickle nature of the mind. Therefore Krishna says, bring your mind in control. The lust, which is the greatest enemy of the living entity, it is sitting in the mind and the intelligence. So Krishna is telling us, control the mind. Arjuna said, Chanchalai mana Krishna. Oh Krishna, this mind is so difficult to control that it appears that it is easier to control the wind than to control the mind. Arjuna says, the mind has certain characteristics which are, one, it is restless. You understand restless? You sit down for half an hour, you're tired. The mind says, come on, let's go out and get the cold breeze. So the mind is, you get married to one person for some time, the materialist, then the mind gets tired of that person. Mind is restless, says, come on, now divorce, I want a new partner. The mind is very obstinate. Just like sometimes a child, the mother is disciplining the child again and again. Still the child is obstinate. He says, no, I won't do it. So mind is like that. It says, no, I won't do it. And it's very strong. It is so strong that it can also defeat your intelligence. Actually, mind is below the intelligence. Therefore, the mind has to be controlled with the help of intelligence. You may see a beautiful person on the road. Your mind is attracted to that person and your mind says, come on, let's go and get friendly with that person. But the intelligence says, if you do something indecent, then you're going to get beaten up. Then your mind says, okay, I won't do it. You go to a store where they sell goods on currency, not in rubles. So you go to that store and you see all these imported items. Sony tape recorders, and all from Germany, Japan, everything. So your mind says, let me rob one. But the intelligence says, if you try to rob one, then you may get caught and you may have to go to jail. So then you say, okay, I won't do it. So higher than the mind is intelligence. The mind will say, don't do your rounds today, you can just sleep, you're very tired. Don't get up for Mangalarti. Intelligence says, no, you must do it. You must do it. You promised your spiritual master, you must do it, otherwise your spiritual life will be ruined. So then you say, okay, I'll get up. So to control the Uma is not an easy exercise. In the Vedas, there's a very nice example given. It is said that the individual is the passenger in the car of this material body. And who is the driver? Intelligence. And the steering wheel is the mind. Because the driver can drive the mind in any direction. The driver can turn the steering to the left, right, and the car will go in that direction. And the senses are the horses. And the self is the enjoyer or the sufferer. And the company of the mind and the senses. The mind is supposed to be directed by the intelligence. But the mind is so strong that sometimes it is bossing, it is directing the intelligence instead of being directed by the intelligence. Just like you may say the child is supposed to follow the parents, but sometimes the children are so powerful, they control the parents. So, what to do with this mind? And the mind is pulling us in different areas of sense enjoyment. So, Krishna is saying, Man mana bhava madhya madhya jima namaskuru. Always bow down to me, offer your homage to me, and with your mind think about me. So the true yogi is not one who can do some exercises, but the true yogi is one who can control the mind. Therefore, Krishna is saying that we must control the mind, we must dedicate the mind to him. In the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada gives a very nice example. He says, just like a married woman who has a lover. A married woman who has a lover, in her mind she is thinking, when will I go and meet my lover? So similarly, Krishna is instructing, we may have so many duties to execute, but in the mind we should be thinking, how can I serve Krishna? Mana eva mnushyanam karna bandaya mokshayo bandaya visha sango mukta nirvisha manaha. It says that the mind should be made the best of friends and not the worst of enemies. And the mind which is under control is the best of friends. And the mind which is uncontrolled is the worst of enemies. Krishna says in the 6th chapter, one must deliver himself with the help of the mind and not degrade himself. Mind is your friend and mind is your enemy. When is the mind your enemy? The mind is your enemy when it is trying to take you away from Krishna. And when is the mind your friend? When it is telling you to follow Krishna's direction. So the mind is telling you to follow Krishna's direction, then the mind is your friend. And the mind is telling you to follow Maya's direction, then the mind is your enemy. Normally we are always thinking, this person is my enemy, he is my friend. But nobody is your friend, nobody is your enemy. Only your own mind is your friend and your mind is your enemy. So one who cannot control his mind, he must understand that he is living with an enemy. Just like if you're living with a poisonous snake next to you, you're always scared at any time the snake can bite you. So if you're living with an uncontrolled mind, at any time your spiritual life chanting Hare Krishna can come to an end. Therefore, we must somehow or the other make the mind our friend. Now, how to make the mind your friend? That is the million-dollar question. If somebody was selling a special drug tonic and you were told, now just take this tonic, the mind will come and control, everybody would take that tonic. But even though you think there is no such tonic, there is a tonic. So what is real samadhi? Real samadhi is a position where the mind is focused on the spiritual purpose of life. So, mind is higher than the senses, but higher than the mind is what? What's higher than the mind? So Krishna says in the 3rd chapter, the working senses are superior to matter. Just like this glass, it's a matter. The glass will stay there till I lift it. If I don't touch the glass, it cannot move. So the glass is matter, but it is subordinate to the working senses. And what is higher? What is higher than the working senses? The mind. The mind is the boss of the senses. The mind is telling the senses what they should do, what they should not do. Just like the small child. It goes to the mother every minute and says, Mother, can I do this? Can I do that? The mother says yes, no. So similarly, the senses are always telling the mind, come on, can I do this? I want to see some beautiful person. And the mind says, okay. Then the senses say, okay. Then the mind tells the legs, okay, walk towards the club now. And higher than the mind is the intelligence. And higher than the intelligence is the soul. So the senses, the mind and the intelligence are the sitting places of this enemy known as lust. Just like when you're fighting a war. When you're fighting a war, you want to know where your enemy is located, isn't it? So similarly, in this war, you want to know where is your enemy. So the enemy is hiding behind mind, intelligence and senses. So the mind, the intelligence and the senses are the sitting places of this enemy known as lust. Therefore, we must control the mind and the intelligence and the senses. Lust has been described as a great symbol of sin. Now you can only defeat lust if your mind comes in control. If your mind doesn't come in control, you cannot defeat lust. In the 6th canto, in the story of Arjamil, you see that Arjamil saw the prostitute making love with a lover, and Arjamil got so affected by that incident that he just started meditating on an incident, and by meditating on an incident, he gave up his wife, his parents, his Brahminical culture, and eventually married that prostitute. Prabhupada said, you may conquer over the whole world, but if you have not conquered over your mind, you have conquered over nothing. Therefore, mind control is very, very important. Now we all realize that mind control is important, but to control the mind is not easy. Vishwamitra was a very great yogi. He was in meditation and he just heard the ankle bells of the dancer Menaka. And just by hearing those bells of the dancer, Vishwamitra's meditation broke and he got attracted to that woman. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati said, the mind is so turbulent. Every morning when you get up, you should beat your mind with your shoes 100 times. And every night when you go to sleep, you should beat the mind again with your shoes 100 times. Anyway, even if you try beating your mind tomorrow morning, don't beat them with these heavy shoes. Maybe you should beat them with rubber shoes or something. And as all of you may have bandages tomorrow. But there is an alternative, as a result of which you won't have to beat up your mind. And that is if you take advantage of Lord Chaitanya's process. Sarve mana Krishna padara vindayo. Maharaj Amrish has said, my dear Lord, I place my mind at the lotus feet. Amrish Maharaj was the king of this planet and a powerful devotee who with his mind was always thinking of Krishna. So, Durvasa Muni was a powerful yogi who was very envious of Amrish Maharaj's exalted position. So he was trying to harm Amrish Maharaj. But Amrish Maharaj was totally fixed in his meditation on Krishna. And as a result, Amrish Maharaj was completely protected by Krishna's Sudarshan Chakra. Similarly, Jat Bharat, who was kidnapped by the dacoits who were trying to offer him to goddess Kali, he was fixed in his meditation on the Lord. And while the dacoits were thinking to kill him, eventually goddess Kali came out from the deity and killed Jat Bharat and killed the dacoits, and Jat Bharat was saved. So we must learn how to control the mind like Amrish Maharaj did, Jat Bharata did, and Haridas Thakur. We are going to discuss the theory and then we are going to discuss the practical ways by which how to control the mind. Just like in school, they first teach you the theory and then you do practical experiments. So you must know both. So Haridas Thakur, as you know, was a great devotee of the Lord who used to chant the holy names 300,000 times every day. He would not even eat till his rounds were over. It is not uncommon for non-devotees to become envious of devotees. So the local Muslim king was very envious because Haridas was getting so many people to appreciate him that in order to spoil Haridas's reputation, he had sent a very beautiful prostitute to try and seduce him. So when the prostitute came the first night, Haridas said, I still haven't finished my chanting on my rounds, please wait. And Haridas went on chanting, and then the night came. And then Haridas said, now it is too late, you please come tomorrow, I'll satisfy you. Second day, Haridas did the same trick. He said, okay, wait, I'll satisfy you in the evening. But when evening came, he said, I didn't complete my rounds, but come tomorrow, I'll satisfy you tomorrow definitely. But this prostitute, she has a great fortune of hearing a pure devotee of the Lord chant the holy names. And because of this great fortune, her heart was so transformed that instead of seducing Haridas, she became a disciple of Haridas. So, you may say, but I am not Haridas, my mind is not so strong. We know you are not Haridas, but by meditating on Haridas's example, you can obtain the strength to become like Haridas. On another occasion, Maya Devi incarnated as a very beautiful woman, and she came in front of Haridas while he was doing his japa. And she was as a most attractive woman, like Miss, like in the material world they have these competitions. They have Miss Russia, Miss World, Miss Universe. So she was like the Miss Universe of all the planets. She was so beautiful. So she came in front of Haridas and tried to seduce Haridas. But Haridas was not at all attracted. Why? Because his mind was absorbed in something else, the holy name. So, if we control the mind, there are 9 processes for spiritual service, as stated by Prahlad Maharaj. Sharanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smarnam, Pada, Sevanam, Archanam, Vandyam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedam. Sharanam, Kirtanam means to hear and chant the names of the Lord. But Vishnu Smarna means to meditate at the lotus feet of the Lord. So, how do you practically meditate on the Lord? This is important. Because we are talking about the importance of mind control. So how to control the Ummah? Now, one way is to chant our rounds very attentively. If you're chanting our rounds attentively every morning, then you will find it will be easy to remember Krishna during the day. Just like, suppose you're talking about somebody in the night before you go to sleep. Then there's a good chance in the night you may even dream about that person. Similarly, if you chant of Krishna's holy name, why do we tell people to chant for 16 rounds? Because if you chant 16 rounds attentively, it will take you 1.5 hours to 2 hours. So if you're chanting attentively for 2 hours, then the mind will think about Krishna for the remaining 22 hours. But if the mind is not hearing Krishna's names, because Krishna's names are not different from Krishna, when you chant his names, it has a purifying effect on all the senses, including the mind. So, attentive chanting is the most important medium through which you can make the mind your friend. Then meditate on the instructions of Krishna. Just like in different country, just like in your country, I'm sure they must have had quotes of Lenin in different parts of the country. So you read these quotes, and then you're reminded what I should do for the country. So similarly, by meditating on Krishna's instructions, then you know what you should do towards Krishna, or what is Krishna asking you to do. After Lord Krishna had left the planet, Arjuna was feeling very, very sad, because Arjuna was an intimate associate of Krishna and he did not want to live without Krishna. So then Arjuna, how did he remove his sadness? He removed his sadness by beginning to meditate on Krishna's instructions from the Bhagavad Gita. So take a verse every day and meditate on that verse all day. And if your mind is meditating on that verse, obviously the mind will not have time to meditate on sex life and money. These are the 2 main areas of concentration of the mind. For example, even when somebody comes to spiritual life, giving up eating meat is not a problem. I have yet to meet a devotee anywhere in the world who gave up Krishna consciousness because his taste for chicken or meat was so good and he could not do it in Krishna consciousness, so he gave up Krishna consciousness because he wanted to eat meat. Giving up meat, fish and eggs is the easiest of the 4 regulative principles. Then giving up gambling also is not so difficult. Not many people who come to spiritual life are fond of going to gambling casinos or horse racing and so on. In your country, the gambling facilities are more restricted than in the Western countries. In the Western countries now, gambling is so common that in almost every milk store in America and Canada, they have what they call instant gambling. You go, you can play, and you can, if you choose the right number or something, then you get an award right away in 1 minute in the store. So giving up gambling also is not so difficult. And giving up intoxication, chai and coffee and drugs and liquor may be difficult for some time unless someone's addicted to vodka and all, but it's not so difficult in the long run. But what is difficult is controlling lust and the desire for money. These are the 2 principal enemies of spiritual life. Therefore, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is very elaborate discussion on the foolishness of illicit sex life. And it is explained how in the story of King Yayati, he engaged in unrestricted sex life, but still in the end he was totally dissatisfied. And he said he was just like a lusty goat. King Yayati said, I was like a lusty goat. Just like Prabhupada used to give this example, a lusty goat. A lusty goat like in India. India, they have these slaughterhouses. And the lusty goat is right in front of the slaughterhouse, engaged in having sex. But it doesn't know that in 1 minute, my turn is going to come inside where I'm going to be butchered. There are 9 openings in the body. All these 9 openings must be illuminated with spiritual knowledge. Then one can control the mind. What are the 9? There are 9 gates in the body. The 9 gates in the body are 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, the mouth, the anus, and a genital. Just like there are different doors through which you can come inside this house, similarly these are the 9 gates through which lust is coming into your system. Therefore Krishna is saying all these 9 gates must be illuminated with spiritual knowledge. Just like in the winter season, when it's minus 20 or 30 or 40 and you go outside on the main road, you want to cover your head, your hand, your feet, your whole body. Because if any one part of your body is left naked, then it will get exposed to the cold and you will fall sick. So, similarly, if 2 senses are engaged in service to Krishna and the other senses are not engaged, then these other senses can get us into trouble. Therefore, Krishna is telling us, control the mind and the senses. So we were discussing practical means, and one means we suggested was very attentive chanting. Another means of controlling the mind is to meditate on the instructions of Krishna, which we have also just discussed. Then another way is to meditate on the pastimes of the Lord. Why do people watch television and movies and all that? Because everybody likes to watch some action. Everybody likes to watch some entertainment. So for the devotee, his entertainment is pastimes of the Lord. Meditate on the desires of the Lord. What does Krishna want? What does Krishna want? He wants everyone to surrender to him. Therefore Krishna says, Sarva dharma paritaja mam ekam shanam rajaham tvam sarva papaya makshami masachaha. Give up everything and just surrender unto me. So see how you can help Krishna in making everyone surrender to him. How can you help Krishna in bringing everyone to him? And the various cultural weapons that we have by which we make people surrender to Krishna. See, if you're engaged in book distribution, meditate how you can do book distribution better. If you're cooking for Krishna, meditate how you can cook for Krishna better. If you're cleaning the temple of the Lord, meditate how you can clean the temple of the Lord better for Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very concerned how the living entities who are rotting in material existence will be brought back to him. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking to Haridas Thakur and asking him, Haridas, how will all these Yavanas be saved? So Haridas said, Prabhu Chinta na karya. My dear Lord, please do not worry. Haram, bali kahe nama bhase. By taking the chanting of the holy names of Krishna without offenses, people will be saved in this Kali Yuga from the clutches of birth and death. So meditate, how can you make people chant Hare Krishna? Then One day you will have a deity of Radha Krishna in your temple. Meditate on that form of the Lord, the beautiful deities. These are some practical suggestions that we have given to realize the theory of mind control that we were discussing earlier. Now in the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is discussing what is austerity of the mind. You know that austerity is the principal weapon of a Brahmana. But you must know practically what does it mean by austerity of the mind. To make the mind austere means to detach it from sense gratification. It should be trained in such a way, Prabhupada says, that the mind is always doing something good for others. One must never deviate from sense enjoyment, from Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is saying the following are measures by which, the following are steps that one should take to realize austerity of the mind. One is satisfaction. One reason why the mind is not happy is because it is never satisfied with whatever you give the mind. In English there's a saying, if you get an inch, you want a mile. You've heard that saying before? Niyat in Ruski, if you get an inch, you want a mile. But you understand the... Anyway, so that is the position of the mind. You give the mind a little bit and it's going to ask you for more, bolshoi. So a devotee, for him austerity of the mind is to be satisfied with whatever is provided by the arrangement of the Lord. A devotee must be satisfied with whatever is provided by the Lord. All of you may want to have a big house like this, but if Krishna gives you a small 2-room, don't be satisfied. If Krishna doesn't give whatever is provided by the arrangement of the Lord, accept it, don't over-endeavour. Satisfaction is very important for a devotee. Then, simplicity. Simple living, high thinking is our philosophy, which I have discussed many times with all of you. So, a devotee, because he is simple, he does not have too many likes and dislikes and too many standards. And because he is simple, he can be satisfied very easily. The more you want sense enjoyment, the more you think of sense enjoyment, the more your mind will be disturbed. The mind is never disturbed when you are thinking, should I distribute the Krishna book or the Bhagavad Gita? The mind is never disturbed when you are thinking, should I cook 4 items of Krishna today or 8 items? The mind is disturbed when you are thinking, should I fulfill my desires for sense gratification or should I control them? So therefore, once you know the cause of disturbance of the mind, don't go near that cause. Therefore Krishna says, wherever the mind wanders, bring it back to the right path. In the Vedas there's an example. A child plays with the ball, but to make sure the ball doesn't go out of the hand, the child ties the ball with a rope and he holds on to the rope. So when the child is playing with the ball, he can throw the ball and bring it back. Similarly, in the Vedas it is said that we should tie our mind down with the rope of the Vedic instructions. So if your mind is tied down with the Vedic instructions, then even if it goes far, you will bring it right back. Just like I've seen even in your country, all these rich people who have dogs, they have with them a chain. So that's a chain that it extends itself to a certain distance. So the dog has freedom, he can go a little far. But then when the owner wants, he can pull the chain and the dog has to come right back. So that is how we should control the mind. The mind, Prabhupada says, should not be duplicit. The mind should be thinking, how can I do welfare for everyone? Just like you may see in your country, like in everywhere else, everybody is mad for sense enjoyment. So everyone should, as devotees, we should be thinking, how can I save them all from this destructive path of drinking poison? So another aspect of austerity of the mind is what is known as gravity. Gravity means to be serious. Seriousness is one of the features of a Vaishnava. You cannot be in spiritual life and at the same time you always be in a mood of joking and fooling around with others. He does smile, but he's serious at the same time. Self-control. The mind, self-control means the mind is always only thinking of what it should do, what is good for self-realization. So, the devotee understands the importance of sense control. And therefore, even though the senses may be pushing for satisfaction, realizing that this is bad for spiritual life, one avoids sense gratification. So if we control the mind, then you can purify your existence. After all, what is this process of devotional service? Everything that we do, chanting, hearing, reading, serving, it is all meant to purify our existence. So do not give the mind much importance. The mind has cheated us so many times. Still we always listen to the mind. I won't listen to the Guru, I won't listen to Krishna, but I will listen to the mind. Why? Mind is my best friend. But the mind is not your best friend. Very often we think, oh, the Paramatma is telling me this is what I should do. Paramatma is telling you nothing. It's the mind that is telling you to do it. And the mind can tell you whatever you want the mind to say. If you want to be a renounced devotee, then the mind can help you in that direction. Mind will give you so many arguments to show why you should be renounced. And if you want to be very attached to sense enjoyment, then the mind will give you 100 reasons why you should not give up sense enjoyment. Therefore, the Vedas say, don't listen to the contaminated mind. Just like when you're on the road and you are looking for direction and you see a drunk coming over there, you don't ask the drunkard, can you tell me how to go to that destination? Why don't you ask the drunkard? Because you know he's not in his senses. You don't ask a small child and tell him, please tell me how to do this job. Similarly, you must realize that the contaminated mind cannot guide you. Then whose mind can guide you? Purified mind. The purified mind of Vyasadeva. The purified mind of Vyasadeva is revealed in the Shastras. And the Guru and the Sadhu are explaining the Shastras to you. Just like, for example, you may have a textbook, but you don't just read the textbook and get a degree. It is when you enroll in the university and you attend the classes, then you can get a degree when you pass the exam. So if you can just accept this one principle, then my mind is corrupt, polluted, cheater number one, I will not follow it. And I'll only follow the purified mind of Guru Shastra. Then you can make spiritual advancement. And in spiritual life, we should not be a pretender. Pretender means externally I look like a devotee, but internally I'm just meditating, how can I get more sense enjoyment? You must understand that if you become a pretender, then Krishna, who is smarter than the smartest, will catch up to you. Prabhupada used to give us a story, a very nice story on this regard. Once, there was a situation in a city where there was a Brahmana who made a great show of being very religious, and opposite his house was the residence of a prostitute. The prostitute, of course, we know what is a prostitute's business, but she was always mentally thinking, in this birth I've taken such a low birth, I have to do this dirty work. Maybe one day I will take my birth like a Brahmana whose house was right opposite her house, and he was always sitting in the balcony with the scriptures open in front of him. And the Brahman, he was making a show of being very religious, but in his mind, he was always meditating on the sex life of the prostitute. He was always meditating, oh, this customer is coming, now this customer is going, now the next customer is coming, and so on. So one day there was a fire, in which both the prostitute and the Brahman both died. So the Yamadutas, the agents of Lord Yamraj, they came to the Brahmana and told them, come on, we've come to take you to hell. The Brahman said, I think you've come to the wrong address. You should go to the prostitute. She was doing all the dirty work, not me. I always have the scriptures reading in front of me. The Yamaduta said, no. We have come to the right place, you. Then the Yamadutas explained that prostitute was engaged in sinful activities, but in her mind she was always thinking how she could take her birth like a Brahmana and she may be able to read the scriptures. But you were making a show of being a religious person reading the scriptures, but in your mind you were just thinking about the sex life of the prostitute. So you have to be punished, not she. So, you understand this story? If you are pretending to be a devotee, and in your mind you're thinking of sense enjoyment, then you're called a pretender. Therefore, we must control the mind and bring it and make the mind our we must control the mind and bring the mind under control. But Krishna says in order to control the mind you need two things. One is constant practice. I'm sure in Russian also you have a slogan, try and try again, you will succeed at last. So keep on trying to control the mind. Just like whenever the mother sees the child doing something bad, doesn't the mother catch hold of the child's hand and stop it? Second thing is detachment. Krishna says without detachment you can't control the mind. So you have to take the mind out of sense enjoyment. Then due to the detachment you can control the mind. And then with controlled mind, you will become peaceful. And then when you're peaceful, you can concentrate on chanting Hare Krishna, reading and devotional service. And when you are concentrating and chanting, then you'll experience the spiritual bliss. Brahma bhuta prasnatma na sochati na kankshati. Then you'll be so joyful that you will reject the principle of accepting and rejecting. Just like when the light comes out in the day, everything becomes revealed clearly. Similarly, in the light of Krishna consciousness, everything becomes clear. So, just like when you're hungry, you begin to eat food. And then when you eat food, your stomach is full, then you say no more. So similarly, where the test of spirit, come on, sense enjoyment, you say no more. I had enough and you cheated me for a long time. Now I refuse to be cheated anymore. By chanting, you can give up your material desires. And as you give up your material desires, it will be easier to control the mind. Sometimes people want to chant 16 rounds Hare Krishna, but at the same time they want the full quota of sense enjoyment. But that is not possible. You cannot have sense enjoyment and spiritual advancement at the same time. You cannot put out a blazing fire and pour water at the same time. You cannot put out the blazing fire and at the same time add fewer butter and ghee into it. So, to summarize this verse, Krishna is directing in the 7th verse of the 6th chapter that one who has controlled the mind, the super soul is already reached and he is peaceful. And to such a man, happiness and distress, heat, cold, honor, dishonor are all the same. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives a nice example. He says, just like a lamp in a windless place, in a wind, just like this room now, there is no wind blowing over here. So if you light a lamp over here, the flame of the lamp will be lit. But if you take the flame outside, due to the wind, it will be blown away. So just like a lamp in a windless place does not waver, similarly our mind should become such, it doesn't fickle. Not one day up, one day down. Today I'm in a good mood, I'll go out book distribution. Tomorrow I'm in a bad mood, I won't do any service, I'm on strike. The river water is always going into the sea, but the sea is undisturbed. So desires may come, but don't cater to those desires. Hare Krishna. So, is this lecture going to help you all control the Uma or no? Okay, now I'm going to take on questions from you, and then I will ask you practical questions on how to control the Uma.
You said that if when devotee feels that Paramatma speaks to him something,
it's often the mind.
Yeah, it is actually the mind. But does it mean that in every case
it is the mind?
Yeah, in every case.
May not be in every case, but it is in most cases, at least in a neophyte stage. In the advanced stage it is different. But in neophyte stage, very often is the Paramatma. Now, it's the mind. But if the desires are towards taking you towards Krishna, then it's okay. Because the mind can also tell you how you should do more service, how you should chant better, then it's okay. We are not saying that the mind says, now you must chant better, get up early, practice renunciation, you should not listen to the mind. No, if the mind is giving you such instructions, then ochan kharasho. But if the mind is saying, no, don't chant, give up bhakti, sense enjoyment, then you must reject it.
No.
Then it's the devil speaking.
In this verse, it was said that one who can control the mind,
Paramatma is realized.
Yeah, Paramatma is realized. And what does it mean in this case to realize Paramatma?
It means, as Prabhupada says in the purport, to listen to the instructions of the Paramatma. Can we wait for half an hour? Because, Amrish, now that I'm not going tomorrow, then tomorrow what is my preaching program going? What program do you want to have? In the morning I'll go to the farm, in the afternoon do a program like this. Prashad in half an hour, is that okay? Because I'm thinking that after Prashad, then I'll end the program tonight, after the question answers.
It is said that we will reach, we will realize Paramatma when we can control the mind. Does it mean that when we will control the mind, we will be able to hear Paramatma directly?
When you control the mind, you'll be able to understand the signals of the Paramatma. Just like, if you see a typewriter in the beginning, you don't know how to use a typewriter. But once you go to a training institute, then you know how to use a typewriter. So similarly, the mind is uncontrolled, but once you go through the training, then when the mind becomes controlled, then you can understand the signals of the Paramatma.
The difference between mind and intelligence.
Difference between mind and intelligence. Intelligence is a driver and mind is the instrument. That example that I gave. In other words, I gave you that example. You want me to give you an example to understand this? Yeah. Suppose the mind says in the morning, don't get up for Mangal Arati today, don't do your rounds, you're tired. But the intelligence says, no, I have given my promise, I must do it. You understand? The mind says, go and see that vulgar movie. Intelligence says, no. If you see the vulgar movie, your mind will get polluted and you won't be able to chant Hare Krishna. Just like sometimes there's a tussle in the mind. Should I do this or not? That is the struggle between the intelligence and the mind.
Is it possible to reach a pure intelligence and use it for the bad purposes? Can mind be controlled, but at the same time, hard, not can man without goodness, without make his mind
what is it?
Without can we
control the mind without good qualities?
Yes, can we make our mind pure, but if there
not
good qualities?
No, you cannot make your mind pure and not place it on Krishna. Controlling the mind means keeping it on the spiritual purpose of life. So, sometimes people may say, oh, I am doing no harm to others, I do nothing bad for anyone. But unless the mind is focused on Krishna and Krishna's instructions, your mind is just going to trick you. What is good, what is bad, is to be established on the basis of the scriptures, not the mind. You're convinced or no?
When some people doing something bad, feel from the heart. When someone doing something bad and feel from the heart, like Paramatma, that there is a danger. For example, thief, when stealing, can feel that police are coming. Yeah, what is this? Is it Paramatma or not?
Yes. It's a Paramatma, and based on experience, the mind is telling him. Just like sometimes a man thinks, I'm going to commit suicide. But then he begins to think, oh, if I commit suicide, what will happen to my wife? What will happen to my children? So based on experience of what happens in life, the mind is telling him that these problems will happen if you commit suicide. So then the intelligence says, don't commit.
Sometimes people who have mental diseases join into Krishna consciousness, and they even can think about Krishna and do many things. But what will they get? And isn't it? I don't know. Is it good to preach them or such things?
Prabhupada was once giving a lecture in which he revealed that once in Allahabad in India, a judge was trying a person for murder. And the person who was being held for murder, he said, my dear Lord, I had become insane. I had become mad when I committed this murder. So the judge said, frankly speaking, virtually everyone is mad. So Prabhupada said, virtually everybody is mad in this material society. It's a question of only degree. Just like when you're sick in the hospital, one patient may be 99 degree, one may have 108, 106. So everybody is basically mad. So everyone is mad to some degree or the other in material world. There was a very famous American movie. It was called, it's a mad, 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 mad world. So it is buzumne. Everyone is buzumne.
But if such a person will live in ashram, it will create many difficulties.
Yes, so if he's really insane, then tell him to live at home. In your country, everybody has a private quarter in any case. So tell him to live at home with his mama and papa and practice Krishna consciousness. I've yet to meet a devotee in your country who doesn't have a doma. So tell him to live in his doma.
If a person can foresee something, is it paramatma or not? For example, he's asking, sometimes he think about someone, and after 5 or 10 minutes, this person calm. What is this paramatma or not?
Well, he must be a yogi.
If someone has no a false ego, does it mean that he is for sure pure devotee? So he is necessarily pure devotee. Is it symptom?
A pure devotee should be able to control over his ego. Because as long as you can't control over the ego, you can't control over the mind and senses.
Can we say that intelligence is our conscious?
No. Intelligence is not consciousness. Intelligence and consciousness are... Conscious.
Conscious, yeah.
That is something speaking from the heart. Yeah, something say. It can, but and also it can be the mind speaking from the heart. It can be it's hard to say. Therefore you need an expert surgeon to tell you in this case what it was.
Is mind and senses control is constant fighting like this, or can we achieve? What is this fighting? What does
fighting is a conflict in the mind. Should I do spiritual activities or should I do Maya activities? That is a struggle between intelligence and the mind. What's the question?
She wants to know, is the chanting Hare Krishna Mantra is considered as fighting against mind?
Yes, chanting Hare Krishna Mantra Yoga is the medicine that will give you strength to make the mind detached. Just like when you're sick, you take the medicine to get strength to fight the germs in your body. So to fight the germs of Maya, you need the strength of the Hare Krishna mantra. Okay?
She's saying that today you said that it is important to be peaceful.
Yes.
And she's saying that for her it is difficult because she always unsatisfied by his service. And,
to be dissatisfied with your service is in a way a good sign. Because if you're dissatisfied with your service, you will be humble and you will always try to do your service better or improve. So a devotee should always feel that he is not doing enough for Krishna.
How we can be dissatisfied and peaceful in the same time?
There are two types of anxiety. One is called spiritual anxiety, the other is called material anxiety. Spiritual anxiety means I'm always worried how to do my service better and to stay out of Maya. Material anxiety is how can I get more quota for sense enjoyment.
Is belief the means to go to the spiritual world? Is it belief the means to go to the spiritual world?
No, not belief alone. You may be convinced about the spiritual world, but if you don't follow the process, take the medicine, you will not recover. Belief is the beginning, faith. But faith has to be taken advantage of according to the process in the Shastras. Okay, so I'm going to ask questions now. I think you all have asked all philosophical questions. Now the question standard is going down. So I'll ask questions. So, I discussed various practical ways how to control the mind. So, what are some of the practical ways and how to control the mind?
Attentive chanting.
Put your hands up and answer. Yes. Attentive chanting. What else? Yes. Concentrating on what? Krishna. Okay.
don't have any free time to to be fully engaged.
Yeah.
So constant practice in controlling mind and detachment.
Yes, but I'm asking you, my question was some practical ways how to control the mind. Okay, what else?
I think how
Do your service better.
yeah, and how distribute more books.
Yeah. Yes.
Gravity and meditation on shloka from Bhagavad Gita whole day. To keep all senses and 9 gates of body.
Okay. Yes. There are two points there that you all still have. None of you have answered.
He said reject the most beloved things for Krishna.
Okay. Yes. Andre.
Hear about activities of the Lord and
Very good.
teachings from
Very
the
good. Yes. Yeah, behind it.
authorities.
What's he saying?
Remember of pastimes of the Lord.
Yeah, that's Tanya. No. Okay, there's only one point that all of you left out, and that one point was to meditate on how to fulfill the desires of the Lord. That is how to bring the conditioned souls back to Godhead. What are the austerities of the mind? In which chapter does Krishna describe austerities of the mind? 6, but also somewhere else.
Yeah. Some things.
17. So what are the austerities of the mind?
So reject some sense enjoyment.
What is
Serve Krishna better. Chant Hare Krishna.
Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, you can control the mind by 2 things. What are the 2 things? I mentioned those 2 things at the end of the lecture.
Remember Krishna always.
Don't open your mouth unless you have the right answer. Don't just speculate. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says there are 2 ways by which you can control the mind. Okay, everyone gives up?
Constant practice and renunciation.
Yes, Vishnu answered. 2 ways to control the mind is constant practice and detachment. Okay? So, I think I'll stop over here now. I'm definitely leaving tomorrow evening. I have my plane ticket for tomorrow. My plane is at 8 o'clock Moscow time tomorrow evening. So, tomorrow also. Actually, I was supposed to leave today, but unfortunately I couldn't get any tickets, so now I'm stuck for one more day. So, what you saying?
If someone, is trying to get knowledge, but at the same time, his habits are, he's doing maybe bad with people or bad moral qualities. He has bad moral qualities.
You can discuss this with me later. I don't understand this. Now it's prasadam. You all can please take prasad, okay? Aditya has worked very hard and prepared nice prasad for all of you.